All right. Well, here we are, and you're on global TV, as you can see, and the world has stopped. You see, usually it spins, but I can't push that button with this system here. I have to learn how to do this better. With us is Paul Falcone, a good friend, longtime leader in human resources, SHRM expert, SHRM speaker, and author of 15, 16 books. And thank you very much for being here and bringing and inspiring me to reach out to Kim again, Kim Congdon, Global HR VP with a $5 billion company called Herbalife Nutrition in LA. Thank you. So tell us about you, Kim, and the 3 Ps. I was reading your LinkedIn profile about the 3 Ps: people, profit, productivity. Is that correct?
People, profit, productivity. Yeah. So if you focus on the people, the profit and the productivity will follow. That's really the 3 Ps.
Great. Stephen Howard, what do you think of that idea, the 3 Ps?
I totally agree with it, Ed. Thanks, Kim. And the way she phrased it is my philosophy. Focus on the people first, the productivity, the profits, the results, the innovation, the collaboration will all follow in sync.
Yeah, exactly.
Philip, so many years involved with Procter & Gamble and Colgate-Palmolive in particular, managing people in 60 countries. You wrote to me about happiness at work, being happy, and how that relates to psychological safety too, right?
Yes, I was interested when you put up all of the iteration of things that we might be talking about, and what intrigued me about the word happiness there, and I was looking at the connection of that to the work that goes on in organizations, and also I'm looking at the state of a number of companies and organizations post-pandemic, where they're looking for a new sense of meaning, and so I tried to define happiness, in some ways, and certainly I think that anybody here can come up with a much better definition, but there are 3 things that it relates to from my standpoint. It's not only having positive feelings or emotions, but also it has to do with a sense of meaningfulness and relationships, and also it has a lot to do with engagement, the social engagements that people have. And so when we talk about focus on, just following up on the previous conversation to tie it in, when we talk about being focused on people, organizations need to be focused on the factors that enable people to feel like they are making a difference in their own life, and then how can they also use that capability to make a difference in the organization. And that's where productivity comes from. And so because organizations aren't focusing as much on that, their organizations have this capability of being very egocentric. I mean, it's all about me, the organization, and let's get our profits going and all of that. And they're not focusing on people. And so people are rebelling. Matter of fact, when I think it was Annalisa was saying that there's people rebelling against a number of things. People are rebelling and they're saying, look, we want to have the organization and be with the organization, but we want to do it in our way. So, in terms of where work is going to occur, work doesn't have to occur within that rectangular building. It can work anywhere if we are able to develop a type of relationships that enable us to keep things going. I mean, and so that's the tie-in to this whole thing. And what I'm also intrigued about is that studies that have been UN, all of us know about the UN studies and, about the happiness index, and so the happiness index looks at a number of issues, 5 or 6 of them, but most important has to do with well-being and sustainability and resilience. And what we have to do, and matter of fact, there are a few countries, I think, Eva, you're in one of the countries that has been in the top 5, for the last 5 years. So all of us want to go there to Sweden. I mean, Finland is right up on the top. All the Scandinavian countries there are right on the top, interestingly enough. So there's something that's happening there in terms of well-being and resilience. And the only thing I'm not as aware of, is whether or not that also translates into the workplace. Certainly from the standpoint of people finding resilience in themselves and being happy, what organizations have been taken that learning and then translated it to what can we do differently in the workplace in order to make people feel that that they have meaning, that they have purpose, that there's something that they're doing that gives them a sense of, I am working on a mission for my own life. It's the quote of the ikigai type of thinking, where what you want to do is to have individuals going beyond just, well, I'm doing the work because I'm good at it. I want to do it because I like it, because it fits my own mission, but that it's going to change the world. And also it invokes in me a sense of passion, which some people would translate to happiness. I mean, that's where we need to be in organizations now.
Thank you. Let's go to Eva and then to Annalisa. So for 25 years, you've been doing HR stuff in Sweden, and also managing people or leading people in 3 continents, right?
Yes.
So happiness, everyone's happy in Sweden, right?
Of course. Yeah, just kidding. Everyone is not happy. But I like what Philip said, but I think also that you have the cultural context that you need to look into, and the culture in Sweden. I mean, you both have the company culture, and then you have the country culture, and those mixed together will decide what happiness is for you.
Yeah, Annalisa, you're all about recognition, aren't you?
All about values, but yes, recognition is one of my core values. So I noticed that you popped recognition in the title of this discussion today. So that immediately made my head swivel.
So Tatiana and I have done one-on-one talk shows and some group shows over the past few years. And your specialty, as I'm seeing very recently on LinkedIn and other places, is you're talking about recruitment, of course, but also the onboarding process and how vital that is to capturing the essence of the new recruit and getting them into the system and shining.
And how important it is to happiness that we're talking about here, because happiness is not a destination. It's a state of mind, it's a choice, and it's a process. And organizations, with respect to onboarding, organizations can do more on the onboarding side during recruiting, because onboarding starts with application. That's not something that you can't go through the steps, at least nowadays, where you put in an application, interview, hire somebody, and then you decide to onboard. By that time, it's probably too late. They have to see the culture. They have to experience the talent brand that the company has as they're going through the interviewing process. Everybody that they interact with is a face of the company. So that's the context that I'm using now. So when we talk about talent assessments, it's not just about putting the right person in the right position. It's engaging that person with the rest of the team, with their managers. So we're using much deeper conversations, or using assessments for these deeper conversations during the pre-hire stage, during hiring, and then immediately after hire during onboarding, because they need to be connected. People don't leave companies, or people don't leave people, they leave companies. So if we don't create the sense of connection immediately, when they were in the first 2 weeks at least, that's when we lose people.
So that's the onboarding. And so to what extent are you looking for what a person's values are?
To every extent, they need to connect with the company's values.
Yeah, Annalisa?
Yeah, absolutely. So values are very important. Obviously, everybody brings their own values into the organization, but the organization has to have its own set of values that aligns with the values of the workplace. I mean, obviously, it's impossible to represent everybody's values, but everybody needs to have a say in what they believe that the values of the organization to be. If it's just set, if they are just set at a leadership level, then you can get a disconnect between what the leaders think the values of the organization are, but what are actually being lived out in the organization. And if there is a gap, it can create a lot of mistrust amongst the organization. If people don't recognize the organization that they work for because what they see represented on their website or on the meeting room walls don't actually represent the company, they don't recognize it, and they say, hang on a minute, you know, this workplace says that it's, you know, it's all about well-being, but we're burning out here with the amount of work that we have to do, then it's going to create distrust and low morale. And of course, that will also result in people either being off sick with stress or leaving. So good talent will leave and they'll go elsewhere. So yeah, it's important to know what our values are. When we do know what our values are, we can look to working with organizations that actually align with our values. And that in itself will make us feel more fulfilled and happier. But we have to know what our values are, first of all.
Thank you. I want to bring in this wonderful array of talent that we have on the screen here today. Kim, you've just heard from Tatiana, Ava, and Elisa. You have global responsibility with people in, I don't know, how many countries?
95.
How do you keep track of that?
Well, not all by myself, I can tell you that much.
So are you using AI? Do you have a robot?
We do. I mean, we use AI in a number of different areas, right? From a standpoint of engagement, from a standpoint of performance, and from a standpoint of recognition, which, you know, to your point, how to keep track of people, that really multiplies your ability to understand, you know, what people are thinking and where you should focus your efforts to get to that clarity of interests that people have, and focus on, you know, really, you know, everything's finite, right? Time is finite, money is finite. So the more we understand our employees, and AI is a great way to do it, so is talking to people, you know, that never goes away, then the better that we can say, okay, so one of the issues really is that people aren't feeling connected in Sweden right now. So what's that about? Let's talk to the leadership there. Maybe there's some things that need to happen, or maybe there's some training that needs to take place. So I don't know if you were throwing it out as a joke, but I couldn't help but say it, because it's here. It ain't going away. It's getting bigger and bigger, and so we might as well harness it in a great way.
Paul Falcone?
Yeah, Kim, I would agree with you too. I think that it's already there and it's been there for a long time. We're just finding new ways of interpreting it. But when it comes to who you're hiring, how you're hiring them, how you're onboarding them, where they are in terms of recognition and engagement, where the pockets of frustration are, how you build your learning management system around employees in terms of their specific career interests. There's a lot there. It will enhance the HR function in many, many ways. I know we read about all the doomsday stuff of, well, I think Elon Musk famously said the entire world is going to end. But shy of that, we're doing fine in HR. And there's a lot of positive stuff that should be coming out of this and coming our way. So good to see, but we're on the precipice of something we don't even understand. And the scientists will be the first thing to say that this stuff can learn faster by scraping data off the internet than we ever thought it could. So now we just have to make sure that the inputs are good and that we have good quality control on the receiving end of this, so that what we're getting is actually real data that we can use that'll be helpful.
So Eva, I want to learn more about Swedish business management and find out whether it's the same or it's different because of everybody being blonde and happy looking, or what? You know, what happens day to day inside a company in Sweden that could be different from inside a company in California?
It's a good question. First of all, I mean, it depends whether it's a local Swedish company compared to a local American company, or whether it's a company working on a global level. Because if it is on a global level, it will of course affect, I mean, all countries will affect into the values and how we behave, etc. But I think what's typical in Sweden, otherwise looking at Swedish culture, is primarily more, it's the consensus. Everyone should be allowed to have a saying. We should listen equally as much on everyone. Compared to the US way, I think most Swedish people would say that a US company is more run from an elitistic point of view. It's a bigger difference between people from a hierarchical position. In Sweden, it's more flat. It normally would take longer time to get the decision done, but implementation will be shorter because you have already started the implementation process while you're talking. But I mean, of course, it differs. It depends what kind of company it is. So it's hard to say exactly, but I think if you would like some kind of generalization here, it would probably be that we like to see each other as we are on the equal level, everyone. So look, going into, I'm extremely fond of talent management, and I love to read stuff about talent management, and here's a typical area where you really can see the difference.
Everybody, this is Gary Sanger, who is a premier, top line, top of the heap, at the zenith. How can I say this? The apex of looking out for top tier talent. And you're on a search right now, $1 billion home furnishings company. How's that going?
I was waiting for a few more accolades there. My head size was increasing. I'm a headhunter. I do retained executive search. We partner with the execs, with the boards, and we're helping them fill out their dance team at the senior management and executive level. So I'm struck with the word happy. I'm finding my brain interchanging that with maybe curiosity, maybe accountable, maybe strategically aligned. I think you in a company, we in a company, we have to know why we exist. I mean, I get downright happy. I'll use that word that seems to be the word of the day when I'm ordering in a nice restaurant or a fast food and they get it right, or they walk up with a smile and they care about it. See, I think also when I make a mistake with my mortgage payment and I get somebody live on the phone and they care about it and they fix it and they follow up to make sure the thing is done. I mean, we're all out there in a company if we're going to continue to serve that customer. If we're not serving that customer, somebody else will. So the happiness to me means accountable to make sure you fix it for them or you solve it for them. I think in terms of the people side of what a company does, Kim, 90 plus companies or countries, some theme about why you exist, some level of fix it, make it happen, make the issues to be solved. I think it all blends together. But I think when you lose sight of the service to the customer, I think your trends for growth, your trends for top line, bottom line, many times they go down. And final point, if you, the CEO, if you, the head of HR, if you're not paying attention to who you allow into your company, please do. I think it's just essential in terms of the future of what that company is all about. Nice to be here, Ed.
I'm blessed, really. Ali Shami, you've talked to me in the past about when you're selling airplanes all over the world and helping people talk across time, across borders, across cultures. You said, I'm going to try to quote you here. If you don't show that you care, they're not going to care about whatever you're saying.
That's right. Thank you so much. Can you hear me well first? I just want to make sure that you can hear
Yes.
me. Thank you so much for the invite. It's so good to see familiar faces and meeting you, new folks. Absolutely. I mean, knowledge. Thomas Friedman said, I may not be using the exact words, but he said, we're drowning in information and thirsty for knowledge or for wisdom. Knowledge is not as good as imagination. Imagination is a state of mind, but it's also mixed with feelings, looking for the unknown and having faith of something that some people may not believe it. So yeah, absolutely. People don't care what you know until they know that you care. It's not the knowledge. I found out when I was asked to move to sales, and I'm like, I'm not a salesperson. I don't like to go and buy or sell. Could you tell me why did you choose me? So this way I can just hone on that talent. And they said it's that customer service, liking people, enjoying people, helping people. That is the biggest part of it, and has that something to do with caring, right? They will forgive you if you don't know information, because they know you care and you're going to go look for some information. And that by itself is a state of mind. I want to relate it back to the happiness. There's happiness and pleasure. Pleasure is temporary. Pleasure is extrinsic. Happiness, it's a state of mind, a state of heart. It's intrinsic. It's that happiness is when you have that alignment between what your vision, mission, values, you mentioned about values, is that alignment. I'm happy when I have values and what I do every day are aligned. If my values is to bring smiles to children, and my job is to go and get these cars from buyers who are not paying their payments, and I pull the car out of the garage and I look at the balcony and I see the little children are saying, Daddy, what's going on? How come they're taking your car? If my values is to put smiles on children's faces and I'm pulling a car away from a father and the children are crying, there's misalignment there. There's no alignment and there's no happiness. And so I think in summary, I just wanted to mention that we globally, you have countries that they like to bring in the caring, the people, the relationships, because there's so much focus on business, and there are other cultures that is the other way around. It took Japan to just convince the Japanese to say, pull the cord. It's okay to hurt somebody's feelings, right? So you'll have that tension between these two. And until we look down to the, Maslow's pyramid is going to follow us, I think, forever. A German philosopher said, I can't fulfill your vision, a leader. I can't fulfill your vision until you fill my stomach. So every culture, every country, every group, every team, people individually, you got to look at them and see, where are they on the Maslow? Are they at the bottom where they're worried about their job? What matters to them? Treat people the way they like to be treated. It doesn't matter what we think of our employees. We can bring in bodies, but how can we keep their hearts inside the company? So that was a great question. Thank you so much.
Ed, could I ask a quick follow on?
Of course.
So that's all fine and good, Ali, but in difficult times, Boeing's at a big speed bump, many big bumps here recently. How do you do it in difficult times?
That's where, you know, trust is built when things don't go well. Calm seas don't make great sailors. It all depends. It's not what happens. It doesn't matter what happens to us. What matters is what are we going to do about it, right? And cultures, yes, you can move, you can affect cultures in the long term of how things gonna go. You can work on changing the culture. It takes a long time. There's nothing better than having difficulties and having challenges to really get out of this norm and have that culture changing so much. No friction, no shine, no pressure, no diamonds. It's how we deal with those things that's going to make a big difference. And yeah, it's things would happen. I mean, in the relationships with working with customers, I value when things go wrong, I jump on those as an opportunity to sell, as an opportunity to build the relationships. Can you imagine having partners for the rest of our lives and we're not tested once that we have an issue? You know, and sometimes when everything is going well, we just want to see, okay, how is this person's going to relate? Do I need to date that person or not? I just want to have an issue so I can tell, is this person hard with me or not, you know? So yeah, how we do with those situations is just having that mindset of being positive, having appreciative inquiry, looking for the things that are going well. It's not just look at the what to do list. A lot of times we put down to-do list. We don't do what to be list.
Interesting. Kim, your company is in the meal replacement business. So what does that mean?
So, well, actually, we look at ourselves as a nutrition company. So it's meal replacement is our shakes, which is our biggest product line with about about a gazillion flavors. There's a new one every day, I think. But what we do isn't so much what we make, which is nutrition supplements, meal replacements, and that kind of thing, is through our distributors. People have a community and they have an opportunity to change their lives. And that's really the way that we focus on what we do, is really about changing people's lives. Connecting that purpose internally is people having an opportunity to make their mark by through that entrepreneurial spirit, through that entrepreneurial spirit of our product line and our distributors. So we've been around for 43 years, and interestingly enough, our company is a US company, but we have a much greater presence outside of the US, and continue to grow, particularly in India. Things are crazy taking off in India as there's some changes in nutrition, which has really helped us from a standpoint of, well, from my opinion, from spending a lot more time focusing on the vegan market, because there's a lot of vegans everywhere, but particularly in India. So we have some really great products, which is important to me personally because my daughter's vegan and it's always hard to find meals that she'll eat. So our products have had a great niche for that. But changing back, if I could, for one moment, Ed, I wrote down what Ali said about fulfilling your vision and first fill your stomach. And I think that actually is the same thing in a different way that other people have been talking about. That's really, fulfilling your purpose, because look, we're not a third world country. So filling our stomach every day is not a problem, because obesity is actually the biggest challenge in the world right now from a health perspective, which is why Herbalife, continues to grow, because weight management is one of the key things. But when you don't have that, to your point about the Maslow's hierarchy of needs, it really does go back to that purpose, which is why, when you were like clapping about make your mark, I mean, connecting people to something that matters is really how you get there, whether it's make your mark or I go back to when I was at the Academy of Motion Pictures, and I joined the organization because I wanted to help bring forward a vision that had been in the making for 85 years, which was to create the world's first major motion picture museum. And people had worked there and they thought, oh my gosh, this museum is going to take away from us. And we love everything about film. I mean, these are the greatest experts in the world that you could ever imagine. And we sort of flipped that on its head and said, actually, the museum will give you the opportunity to showcase all that work, all that beautiful film, whether it's archives or the films itself, on a world stage because of the museum. And that brought everyone together in just a very focused purpose, from feeling like they were threatened to feeling like, oh my gosh, this is my place. This is my opportunity to make that impact, to make that change. Anyways, I know that I switched back, but I wanted to note that because I loved that about the filling the stomach.
Well, this is very cool. Annalisa's got a time constraint, and you just hit the nail on the head, because make your mark is one of her things, and a broadcast with that name.
Oh,
Thank
actually, it's the name of my business.
Oh,
it's
that's why
Make
you
Your
were
Mark.
smiling so much.
Every time you mentioned it, I was like, yeah. Yeah, very important. Positive imprint, uniquely you, on the world and the people around you. That's how I define mark. That's why I spell it like that as well, to show that it's distinctive. Like, anyone can leave a mark, right? M-A-R-K. Doesn't have to be a good mark. It can be a bad mark. It can be indelible. It might be one that you can rub out, but a mark is distinctive. It comes from the French for name or brand. That's how it's spelled. And of course, it's synonymous with prestige cars, but not a lot of people know that these days. So yeah, that's why I adopted that spelling. Just as a matter, bit of trivia there for you.
Yeah, well, cool. So tell me about your broadcast. How's that going?
Slowly, yeah.
Just
Yeah.
do it. Remember, we had this conversation. He said, don't worry about looking like a fool. Others are going to love it.
I've got this kind of like, it's a production. It has to be polished. It's got to be like a TV show. There's loads of editing in it, and it's finding the time to do it. So I've got 2 shows, including an interview with Ed that is still in a can, waiting to be edited and put up there. And Ed was saying, don't worry about it, just throw it up and do it. Don't worry about all the frills and the bells and the whistles and everything else. But yeah, that's just, I think that's the old actress mindset in me. Has to be like rehearsed and polished and produced. Yeah.
So Kim, I would really like to learn more about your time at the Academy, but we have so many people who are dying to speak, like Stephen Howard. I could just see you itching to speak here.
No, I'm listening. I learn more when I listen than when I talk, quite frankly. So I'm very good at it. I want to be a little controversial, or a little, maybe get people to rethink, focus a little bit different. All this stuff about company values is great, but I think where we lose the focus, particularly with large organizations, is that the leaders create a climate. If you're managing a people of 200 people at Procter & Gamble or at ExxonMobil or Citibank or Boeing, you can't, whatever you do in your team is not going to affect the profitability of ExxonMobil or Boeing or anybody else, unless you make a huge mistake and cost them financially. I think what senior leaders need to understand is that they need to help the first line leaders, the second line leaders, create the right climate in their organizations that do align with the company values. So quickly, for instance, when I was at Citibank, I was vice president of marketing. I had 23 people reporting to me. Yes, we all followed and believed in the Citibank culture at the time, but my climate working for me was a lot different than working for our chief financial officer, or a lot different from working for our branch managers. They created a different climate in their organizations. And so I think, and hopefully people listening to broadcast Ed are realizing that as a frontline leader or second line leader or supervisor, team leader, you can have a huge impact on the climate that you're leading. You will never have a huge impact on the profitability, the productivity, the results of the organization. I mean, you just can't. It's just too big. So focus on what you can improve. Focus on the people you lead and focus on creating the right work climate.
Paul.
Yeah, Steve, I totally agree. Values are great. They're a framework, but they're oftentimes too lofty. They are very, very positive. No one has negative values that they share with their employees. So in that sense, it's an even playing field. The question for me is, and I always talked about values-based leadership. And I learned that when I was CHRO of Nickelodeon. Mark Taylor, who was our GM, was such a wonderful leader. And he spent time talking to new hires during orientation and reminding employees about he called them his grade 8 rules. And Mark had these values about always having people's back and making sure you bring out the best in others so they can perform at their best. When you keep littering the landscape with these expectations, first of all, the employees know what's expected of them, and they kind of have that parameter. Okay, I get it. I understand what Mark is saying, and Mark is telling me that I'm the ambassador, but I have to kind of perpetuate the same culture that's existed here. And I get that. And I also know I'm not walking on eggshells and trying to figure out, I hope I don't step on any landmines, because you know what those expectations are. And the reality is, at that point, you just pay it forward. There was very little drama at Nickelodeon. I mean, yeah, we had some employee relations problems, but basically, I'm going to go back to Annalisa. We were all happy. And it wasn't exactly Sweden. I'll give you that. But you know what I'm saying? It's like when people know what's expected of them, when people feel like, wow, it's really cool to be here and I want to be part of the solution. I want to have fun. It's great when that comes from your CEO. It doesn't always come from the CEO though. And sometimes you just have your own little, environment right there, your department, your team, your group, whatever it happens to be. That's your ecosystem. And I don't care what bullets and fires are on top of your head flying around. The bottom line is you shield your people from that.
I see two hands. Okay, Eva, and then Annalisa.
Yeah, I mean, I fully agree what you say as well, Paul, but I would also like to add, I mean, we're talking sometimes so much about values, and there's a risk that we are creating these fantastic brochures, videos, or whatever, but we kind of forget it's not about what we say, it's about what we actually do. I mean, the employees will mirror their leaders. If my manager would behave in a way that isn't okay, I would mirror that down to my employees, and then it will go further down, and that will affect the productivity, the well-being, etc., regardless of what the values would say on the wall.
Now,
Yeah,
when
very
you speak to groups and you counsel companies to grow and expand, you've worked in large companies, you've worked in small companies, you talk to boards all over the place. Do you help the boards be better leaders, or do they stick to being hands-off managers? What's your experience? It must be varied.
To who? Are you talking to me or to Paul?
Eva.
Sorry. I would say it depends. I think most boards actually kind of back up when it comes to leadership. And I think sometimes they should interfere more and they should get more involved in the culture that is actually going on in the company. But sometimes I get a feeling that they don't see their role in that way. They focus more on what's the figures on the last row instead of looking at how did we get that figure.
Annalisa, where do values come in onto all this?
Yeah, so I echo what Ava says. I'm going to have to disappear in a few minutes, as you know, Ed, so this is going to be our last contribution. So I just wanted to pick up on some of the things that Paul said and also Stephen said about values and climate, is that when values are done properly, they shape the climate of the workforce. The problem is that they're not. And a lot of organizations don't know how to get the value out of their values. They do not know how to work their values and to convert those values into a valued asset. And what I say to leaders is that if you want stability in your organization and you want to reduce risk, the risk of litigation and the risk of a damaged reputation and the costs associated with not paying attention to your values, then learn how to convert those values into a valued asset and work them and make them work to your advantage. A lot of leaders, unfortunately, we really are we're very like-minded people, but some are very cynical about this. They go through the exercise wanting to placate their HR, not really believing in it. It's like something that we'll do. It's a PR exercise. It's a marketing exercise, or it'll keep some of our staff happy for a few months or whatever. But it's not important to them. It should be important, and they should be taking it more seriously. Also, going back to the customer service that some people talked about, Ali mentioned it as well. Valued people, they say that hurt people, right? It's the same with values. Valued people value people, and leaders and organizations that don't give their staff enough customer service training neither value their staff and they don't value the customer as well. I knew of a law firm that lost a very big customer because when their receptionist was off, instead of paying a little bit more that day to go and recruit a receptionist from a temporary agency, they decided to use an intern from the general office with absolutely no training. I happened to know this person because she was a friend of my family and she knew that I actually worked at this firm. And she said, you can tell your boss that I am going to go and take my business to another firm because I've never been so insulted as I was today. If that's all they think of me and my business, that they could put somebody on who had absolutely no experience, it can do a lot of damage and you can lose a lot of money in a very short space of time. And of course, that word gets out to other people too.
Yeah.
So take it seriously.
Okay,
Value your
everybody, I
people.
want to just jump in here because time is fleeting, but everyone will have a chance to talk who wants to, of course. Exchange email in the chat. Put your email or website or LinkedIn. So that's your ROI from today. There's so much going on. The world, I think, in my vantage point here in San Diego, I think the world is spinning faster. I think time is moving so quick. And, the scientists aren't fessing up. Maybe there are people out there pushing the world faster. Tatiana, what do you think of that?
This is what I talk about in my leadership resilience.
I didn't know that.
Conversation. Actually, that yes, change is a constant. It's kind of an overused phrase, a cliche almost, but it is true that change is accelerating, or it seems like change is accelerating, perhaps due to technology. And for some generations, it's more impactful than others, I would say. Younger generation seems to be up to speed and get up to speed a lot more quickly with change. But that's where that leadership resilience topic comes in. I think it's the other side of psychological safety, because I kind of have, I know I mentioned to you that I have a bit of a unique perspective, perhaps, or different perspective on psychological safety, because it is brought up in my coaching conversations with my clients quite a bit. I think safety is in the eye of the beholder. It really depends on the situation. And that's why it's called psychological. It's not physical, but it's emotional. And it's a term or phenomenon, whatever you want to call it, used to describe a feeling that people get about something due to something that was done to them. but a company or however they see it. And unfortunately, it can be often used to remove the responsibility from the person for feeling better, for making it better, making things better, asking yourself, what's your part in it? That's my number one question. If I ask, when I work with leaders and they start telling me about the change and about other people, about their coworkers, their peers, their boss, the company culture, any of it, expressing their unhappiness, my first question is, okay, that's other people. What about you? What's your part in it? And we don't want to use this term of psychological safety to blame, oh, this just happened to me, and you don't want to blame others on this feeling. We all have a choice. That's why I said earlier, happiness is a choice. You choose to be happy. It's about what you do. It's not about the challenges, it's about what you do. I think Harley said, you said it. So that's where resilience comes in. It's building inner strength. And for many people, sad to say, it's about inner trust. You have to trust yourself to get through it, instead of giving up and saying, oh, it's all these things outside of my control. Well, you can control yourself. And nobody can make you feel or do something. You always have a choice. And we, as a society, as a culture, as people, we forgot this, that we actually do have a choice. It's an empowering feeling. And I have to remind my clients about this often. Oh, so yeah, it's okay that I don't know all the answers, or I can make a mistake. And it's okay to have feelings, but it's also necessary that we make a choice about something. What's the next? What can I control? What can I do next?
Gary, you're a psychologist, a psychiatrist in your work. I'm putting that label on you, but without knowing anything. But because you're dealing with the CEO or the board of a billion-dollar company, they're trusting you to find them somebody that could fit in with their culture. So I'm paraphrasing too much here, and I really don't know what I'm talking about. But listening to you for 25 times on my programs, I've learned something about where you're coming from in your executive search. So what Tatiana is saying, and what Annalisa is saying, what everybody's saying here, fits exactly into what your job is, isn't it?
Well, that's part of it. You know, I'm thinking of why these hundreds and thousands of people out there that aren't very happy with what they're doing. You know, the retained search world, we're trusted, it's confidential, and it's something they can go out and check out. And so as we get individuals that aren't looking, but they'll listen to us, many of the reasons are, why are you looking? Why would you spend some time investing in this? I'm not appreciated where I am now. Well, I think that's probably the wrong response. Well, I'm not listened to. It's not okay in my environment to have an opinion different than my boss. It's not okay to have an opinion different than the executives. Whereas I think the progressive companies, they want curiosity. They want ideas different than their own. And so in two quick examples, the finalist for the CFO position for this $500 million company said, look, how do I know the board is aligned with what is happening here? And I said, well, you're going to find out this Friday, because you and the CEO and the board member are going to have lunch. And you guys are going to spend a few hours to make sure you're aligned with where this company's going. The same response from this $1 billion+ home furnishings company. They're hiring their new CHRO. The previous person went away into another environment, and they wanted someone more strategic. They wanted someone more Kim-like to have a big difference in who they brought on the bus, which seats they're in. So being okay to have an opinion different than your boss, not to embarrass him or her, but just to maybe make it better or have another point of view. I think that's really key.
Philip.
The most important, I agree with what Gary is saying. And one of the things that I really get out of this conversation in terms of values, and and it blends right into some of the earlier comments, is that organizations might have these nice grandiose statements on a bulletin board, but unless it is practiced on a global and local basis, I mean, it has to be local, and it has to be within the mindset and the behavior of individuals who are on the local level, managing their teams and working with the people who are within the locus of their activities and their behaviors. That's where it really comes together. And that's especially true, I found, working in global organizations, because the other thing is that when a company, say like if it's a US based company, there are local values that you have to tie into and that you have to understand. And if you aren't able to recognize how individuals see the world and behave within their locus, their own area, then you're not going to be successful. If they feel that you are just trying to push this grandiose plan on them, made in America, then it's not going to work for them. And I go all the way back to Eva's comments, when some of the pieces that she talked about in terms of the values of organization and how they behave in terms of listening to people, making sure that decisions aren't just made and then given to people, but that people have input into those. I mean, in fact, the companies that I have worked for, when they use that type of value framework, they're more successful wherever they are.
Paul Falcone.
Yeah, I would say that we've lost the ability as a society to sit around the campfire and pass the wisdom down from the elders to the younger generation. That's one of the reasons why the Gen Z Zoomers, the 25 and under globally, are testing out as isolated, depressed. There's a lot going on. There's a lot going on out there. Kim, you said something earlier. All the tools, all the techniques, all the AI is great, but it's all about human connection. To the point, I think, Tatiana, I think you said it earlier, people join companies, but they leave managers. And that's true. And that's because that personal relationship isn't there. So sometimes we need to get through all the weeds. We need to cut through all the noise and just go back to, are the relationships as strong as they could be? And that's where the management training belongs.
Yeah, Tatiana?
I completely agree. It's I'm reminded of a presentation I heard at a manufacturing conference, and we were talking about, again, making connections and how it impacts retention specifically. And the example that the presenter gave was, imagine yourself where you live right now, and you have friends and family nearby, you love your neighbors, it's a great school district, whatever is important to you. But if you think about it, it's all about people connections. And then will you just pick up and leave? Will you move for no reason? No. Even if you don't like the house itself, you will make every effort to make the house better because you have the people. So he was aligning that using that as an analogy to how we build connection, the importance of building connections in your organizations, especially again with the multi-generational workforce, tremendously varied values. Everybody's coming from a different spot. They were brought up differently, so we have to be sensitive to that. But yeah, it's about the people, and it brings me back to that onboarding piece. You've got to build those connections early on, literally in the first week or two, because then they will have a harder time leaving and will have they will be more engaged in making the house better.
Ava, the new generation, I know you sent me a note saying that you'd like to address that. Is it different in Sweden than other places?
When it comes to new generations, I think we face more or less the same challenges all over. I don't think that Sweden differs that much. But I think it will, I think as always, when I'm talking about new generations, it doesn't matter if we would talk today, if it was 20 years ago, 30 years ago, it's all about how to handle the new generation coming up. But what I think will be a challenge is that things go quicker and quicker. And as Tatiana says, when it comes to people connection, I think you need to be quicker and quicker because they seem to be less and less patient, meaning that you have shorter and shorter time.
Thank you. Ali, I know you're pressed for time. So did you bring your guitar?
No,
you?
I'm actually at Boeing now.
Oh,
If I were
I
at home,
see.
I probably, you mean the oud, which is the grandfather of the guitar. I love this. My goodness. I mean, I wanna before I head to the my 9 o'clock meeting. There's so much to talk about. There's so many points that were raised by everyone in this room that if I start talking about it, I'm going to take over everything. I think one thing that I'm really gathering from what it's just, there is no one solution. There's not one. I mean, we come up with what resonates with us based on our experience. We are the product of the environment that we grew up in. If it just happened that I have a leader that is not listening, it's going to stay in my mind. I'm thinking that is the solution. But if you look at it, every situation is unique. So there's not one specific. And I love what I forgot who mentioned it, but just like working on an environment, like there's nothing worse than when it comes to onboarding and just working with teams. There's nothing worse than bringing in the best seeds and plant them in a cup. You got to cultivate the garden. It's the environment. So really the best way to capture all these uniqueness, whether it's at the bottom, to figure out who's at the bottom of the Maslow pyramid, who's really, forget it. No, I have bills to pay, and who are in the middle of the Maslow, who is at the top, and being unique and really to understand every individual, generational, all of the differences, background, culture, all of that. And so there's not one solution. The bottom line is leadership. It's the leader that promotes and creates and work to create that environment, providing the things and that psychological safety where people come into work, they don't leave 90% at the gate when they go inside the building. There's nothing worse. I mean, just say the richest parts of the land in the world are the banks and the gold mine. No, I think the richest pieces of land are at the gate when people go inside the building. Are they leaving out so many ideas? So they leaving so much out of themselves at the gate and not bringing it in to feel very comfortable. If 90% of my energy is being worried about what to say, what to do, am I gonna be protected? Am I lose my job? All that energy is going on just protecting myself. It's not on innovation and coming up with great ideas. So treating people the way they like to be treated is key, and there's no one solution. With that, I'm gonna say thank you so much. It was a pleasure seeing familiar faces and meeting new folks. I hope we could connect. Please, I put my LinkedIn. Great to see everybody. Take care.
Okay, we're going to do this again, and everyone will be invited back. Gary Sanger, would you like to sum up?
I endorse what Ali said. There's not one solution. And as you're open to other ideas, whether it's from the janitor, no offense to the janitor, whether it's from a mid-level manager, just be open. I think that curiosity button has to be big. And it's okay to be happy. It's okay to be friendly. It's okay to be nice. I think that's really critical.
So Stephen Howard, thank you very much for meeting up with me and my friends in Palm Springs area the other day. It was great to have you, and generated a great impromptu conversation. So networking is key, isn't it?
Networking is critical, and it was a good evening with some good Irish music to beat as well.
Yeah,
so.
right. We met up at an Irish pub in Rancho Mirage, which is unusual, but anyway, it was a good place. So Tatiana, thank you so much for your time here again, and the work that you're doing is is it more female based or is it, everybody?
It's equal opportunity. We're all humans. I really believe in humans, and that's the most important thing. And I end up working with all generations, all industries, and all genders. I think, and I've been saying this for years, people are the foundation of every business, kind of like what Kim is saying. Without people, you don't have profits. And no matter how good your service is, how good your product is, if you don't have the right people in the right positions, and then you don't invest in them and growing them, connecting them, you don't really have a company. Great people make great companies.
Yeah. Paul, who is Sue Falcone?
No relation, but she's the head of a speakers bureau, and it's called Remarkable Speakers Bureau. And she reached out to me, I think from South Carolina, if I'm not mistaken, and said, okay, we're not related, but do you want to become one of my speakers? And she was a hoot. I had a blast meeting her, so I agreed to do it. So I'm part of their speakers bureau. At this
So
point.
I want you to connect again with Stephen Howard. He's getting speaking engagements now, and he could use a lift.
Happy to catch up, Stephen, anytime. Or I could use a lift. So there you go. That's fine too.
Hitchhiking, and I'm hitchhiking across the sky. What was that book a long time ago?
Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy.
Yeah,
Right,
right. There's the galaxy out there. And so Eva, thank you very much for being on the program. I welcome everyone to come back again. We can pick up on this, say in 2-3 weeks, 4 weeks from now. And I'll send out a memo, and those who want to do it, just accept. And thank you. Talk to you all soon. Thanks for being on Global TV. Again, Kim, thank you for everything.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Oh,
Thank
by the
you.
way, Kim, in India, have you added curry to the flavor?
No, but we'll take that under advisement.
I would think that would be a winner.
I
Yeah.
think Ed wants a piece of that.
Yeah, there you go.
But only real light.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Interesting.
Ciao.
Okay.
All right.
Thank
Thanks,
you.
everybody.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye now. Thank you. Thank you.